Welcome to the Memories Matter with Big Mitch, and today we got a doozy for you. I consider him a person that I really respect and that has a lot of integrity, and he's a humble individual and modest. This is Chief Keith Glass, formerly chief of City of Monroe, and also you need to know he's a 31-year veteran of National Guard. And he's going to tell us a story. I'm not going to tell it. And we're going to start with him earliest that he can remember in Buddy and Jimmy Lee Glass household. And so this is going to be interesting to know how he became the man who he is in his daddy's mama's house. The show belongs to you, Keith.
Thank you, Big Mitch, and it's an honor, honor to be here. And that respect is very mutual. I'm proud to be able to call you my friend. Buddy and Jimmy Lee Glass. Buddy Glass come off a sharecropping farm. His first job, it was a soda jerk at Monroe Drug in Monroe, Georgia. That I know of.
Right.
Then later he went to work for Walden Mill. We had two cotton mills in Monroe. One of them was a Monroe Mill. The other one was a Walden Mill. Both of them on the south end of town. One on the west side of Broad Street, and the other was on the east side. So nobody ever called them that, though, when we was growing up. It was the old mill and the new mill. The old mill started in 1895, and the new one was 5 years young. It started in 1900. Right. Jimmy Lee lost her mama when she was very young. Her daddy, J.W. Norman Sr., Papa Jim, worked in the cotton mills, and he'd go around and work on machinery, mostly in the spinning room. If anybody knows about the cotton mill, you know what a spinning frame is. But she spent a lot of time with some of her first cousins, her mama's brother's folks. So she spent a lot of time with them while Papa had traveled. So both of my families come from sharecroppers and then into the textile or the cotton mills, as we call them. I remember my daddy was in the Guard. I was probably 5, 6 years old, and he and Mama had a little conversation, and I say a little conversation, they might have been arguing a little bit, and I was probably 5 or 6, but it was time to go to annual training, or as it was called back in, summer camp. And it was about Jimmy Lee telling Buddy that me and Keith gonna have some money while you gone, because Mama didn't work. She looked after me at that time. So
she was a homemaker.
That's right. She was raising me,
and Buddy took care of everything.
Buddy worked. He was working over at he was a supervisor on the third shift over at the new mill. He come home from work and he went in there to sleep, and I knew that my mama was serious about having some money, so I slipped in there and got his billfold. I took that bill.
5 years old.
Yeah. I got that billfold and I went out.
Mama's boy.
That's right. We lived in a little old 3-room house. Had a bedroom, a living room, a bathroom, and a kitchen. And when I was about 5, my bedroom was the couch in the living room. Later on, Daddy had a little porch. He closed it in when I was about 10. I thought I was something. I had me a room, And but I put that wallet up under the house. And back in them days, you'd have a debit man, the insurance man come around. He'd get, if you had the insurance, or there used to be a man come around, sell coffee, and have a little catalog, like, you'd order stuff. So he come around, and Daddy couldn't find his billfold. And, I'm just sitting over here out of the way, and they just tearing the house up looking for that billfold. And I'm just being real quiet, and then they look at me and said, Mama said, you know where your daddy's billfold is? I said, yes, ma'am. So where's that? I said, well, I put it under the house. Why'd you do that? I said, well, you know, y'all talking about not having no money. You was talking about not having no money while they was at summer camp. So I done it. Anyway, I had to go get it. And Daddy was mad, but really his madness turned into laughter.
Yeah.
So that was one of them stories.
So this boy, he about his mama.
Oh yeah, well, about me too, I guess. You know, I want to make sure we was took care of while he was down there at summer camp at Fort Stewart. But you know, one of my greatest blessings, and I've got a lot of blessings that I call my greatest. There's so many of them. Was having a mom and daddy that cared, and that shaped, man. Caring a lot of time meant whoopings and and you know that goes to a story of when I was about 10, maybe 11. On the mill village in the summertime, all the little boys, you'd wear a pair of cut off blue jeans, you'd be barefooted, wouldn't have no shirt on.
Right.
So we was off down the back alley. And I don't remember what I done. I've tried to. But my mama got a switch, and she was coming after me, and I took off running. And I run up the back alley, up to the house. It gets worse. I go in the house, and I lock her out of the house. And after a standoff that we familiar with, you have this standoff, I opened the door, and my loving mama, Jimmy Lee, she come in there with that switch, and, I had marks from the back of my neck down to my heel. She wore me out, and because, I after that, I wondered, what was the worst, what I done? Running,
locking her out,
or opening the door and letting her in. But she wore me out, and the next day, where our house was.
Combination of the two, running and locking her out.
Right. Oh, man, it was.
Probably just got 2 licks in the beginning.
She wore me out, but, we went in that circle, she just hit me. Next day, we was playing ball out there in the yard, and this old boy lived down there. We called him Trick Davis. And he said, what happened to you? I said, my mama whooped me. He said,
you didn't put a shirt on?
I still run around like we always run. He said, I didn't know Miss Jimmy Lee was mean like that. I said, well, I think I earned every one of them this time, But, growing up on the mill village, and I was the only child.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I guess
you spoiled, ain't you?
I guess after stealing my daddy's wallet and running, they decided they didn't want no more. But whatever.
And locking out of the house. He said, I don't want 2 or 3 of these jokers.
Yeah, we'd play ball out there in the yard. But, the mill village, I wish my kids had grown up similar because there was always a ball game going on, playing hopscotch, just always kids to play with.
Laughter.
I had cousins, Sammy and Daryl and Deborah Glass. They lived right down the back alley. I lived up on the corner of 5th and Broad, and they lived on 4th Street down there, and David McCord and Joe Dickens.
So y'all right there in the center of the town.
Yeah, right out just south of town. And always had something going on. We was always into some kind of mischief. And, it was, those days were just, it was always, even if I'm home alone and I got my baseball glove and my ball, well, I could practice my flies. I'd throw the ball up on the roof and catch it when it come off. Or I'd throw it against we were fortunate. We had an underpinning under that old mill house, and I could just throw it, and it hit me, the ball bounce off, and I'd work on my grounders. So I liked to fish. There was a fellow at the mill, J.W. Jackson. He was a fixer. He worked on the spinning frames. And J.W., the mills back in, they'd work, the morning shift was 6 to 2. Second shift was 2 to 10, and then 10 to 6. And that old mill whistle would blow like 15 minutes till, then it'd blow 5 minutes till, and then when it was shift change, they'd blow a long blow, and you'd hear it all over Millville. That went away about, I don't know, probably when I was around 10. I guess everybody didn't have to have a whistle to wake them up no more. But anyway, I'd go fishing, me and J.W. Jackson. He'd take me fishing. He'd get off at 2, and I'd get off school. Sometime he'd come get me, and we'd go fishing over on Deer Acres. And you probably heard me talk about Deer Acres. But catch some big old pretty brim and bass, and just have a good time.
Old Lake Pond.
Yeah, it's big old. It's actually, Deer Acres is
still there?
Yeah, it's a 1,200 acre farm. It's in the lake. It's got a couple of lakes that's over 50 acres. And, it's just it was an experimental farm for the John Deere Corporation. A lot of people, I'd hear people talking, and after I was grown, talking about, there must be a lot of deer out there, call it deer. This was after it. I said, no, it was actually.
And then John Deere put one down. It settled down there on 78.
Yeah.
Down there at the end before you get to Atlanta Highway.
Yeah, but it was, they'd have big agricultural shows out there. They'd have all the first 9 holes, Monroe Golf and Country Club, Mr. Charlie Hassel, who run that farm out there, and I think he was a executive vice president of John Deere or something, but they used the equipment, that John Deere equipment, to build the first holes of the golf course in Monroe. Most folks don't know that, but growing up, Little League baseball, Pee Wee football,
so you
coaches.
You did it from Pee Wee and Little League baseball, huh?
Right.
And football.
Daddy coached me, and Thomas Hudgens, who was, he worked at GM, and Daddy we had a Pontiac Catalina, blue 2-door 66. That was a pretty big old thing.
I remember that old long Catalina 60. Yeah,
go from here to yonder, And Thomas had I think it was a 60, it was a 65, 666, might have been 67. 3-speed on the column, Impala. That thing was red and had black interior, and over on Old Walden Road, they used to drag race over there, and they, it's just a different time. It's just so much different. There wasn't about 3 houses on that road over there, and now it's covered up with houses. But growing up, my childhood, early years, I think it was a great way to grow.
What about the school, elementary school?
School, in the primary school, and I think this is a neat thing. We went to Johnson Institute. That was on the south end of town. Before integration, all the black kids went to school on the north end of town. All the town kids went to school in town. Now, when you got up through that Johnson Institute went up through the 5th grade. After the 5th grade, you would go had like a middle school thing, but we went through the 4th.
We didn't have middle school when I was coming up in Atlanta. Yeah. I thought Georgia just didn't have middle school.
It was like, I say middle school, it ended up being
it's similar though.
Like it was like a 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Yeah, it might have been a junior high. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Middle school we went all the way up to the 8th grade. And then when the 8th grade, we went to high school.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what we done? We integrated when I was going to the 5th grade, and at Johnson Institute. So we've been used to. We had Miss Kitchens in the kitchen, and that was like home cooked food.
Right.
It was just
That's what he did back then.
I remember all my teachers, Miss Rogers, we had one, Miss Dawson in the 2nd grade. She was tough now. She was just, ain't no telling how many. I got a school picture from that year, and there's 3 little boys on the front, and the rest of them lined up behind us. Philip Casper, me, Wayne, I can't think of his last name, but we were kind of, we wasn't, I guess we were problems because she she paid special
Free
attention
spirit
to us.
boy.
Yeah,
Free spirit
yeah,
boy.
yeah.
Yeah.
She took care of us.
Yeah.
And we integrated. And my class at the Monroe Elementary School, it was like in a basement. And that thing would flood, and you'd see a big old rat there once in a while. And man, it was just something else. But everybody worried about black, white. I had more issues with the city kid than I ever had with a black kid. I got in a fight one day with a little boy, and he had called me a lint head.
What is that?
Well,
Yeah,
I had no idea what a lint head was. But the other kids laughed, so I hit the boy. And Mama used to whoop me about fighting and stuff, and I would avoid it. I'd do everything. I mean, I'd walk away from stuff that later in life, ain't no way I would have walked away, but I was just trying to do what my mama wanted me to do. But anyway, I got to paddling, and Daddy come got me. And he said, "Why are you and that little boy fighting?" I said, "Well, Daddy, he called me a lint head, and the other kids laughed, and I hit him." I said, "What's a lint head?" And Daddy laughed. He said, "Well, that's what they call people that work in the cotton mill. They come out, they have a cotton peel in their hand."
I got you.
Yeah, so anyway, I thought I was going to get a whooping, but I didn't. He took me to the pool room, got me a hot dog. And we had a police then named Johnny Underwood. And I'd known Mr. Underwood all my life. His son later became chief there in town, Billy Underwood. But I was in there eating that hot dog with my daddy, and Mr. Johnny come in. He said, "Boy, why ain't you in school?" And I looked at him. I said, "I'm with my daddy, Mr. Johnny." He said, "That ain't what I asked you." I asked you. So anyway, I had to tell him that story. And, but, they integrated at the 5th and 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
After that, they opened up Carver High School, become Carver Junior High. And all kids went to Monroe Area High then. I claim, one of my claim to fame is I was one of the first white kids to play for a Carver football team. They had just come off state championship that year.
Really?
The year after they integrated, they won state championship.
Wow.
And Coach Felton Lachlan, Coach Jim Robinson, Coach Lachlan, sharp. He was always sharp, everything in place. And he told us that we're going to Wildcat Valley. Oh, what's Wildcat Valley? Just everybody like
Walton County boy.
Yeah. Well, what it was, they had a practice ball field at the junior high, and the football field was up here. But back down there behind it was just a gully. I mean, just a washout. Coach take us down there, we'd be crab walking up and down them things. So it didn't take long. We tried to stay out of the Wildcat Valley. We tried to perform to a level that didn't get us in the valley. But Coach Lachlan's one of my great mentors. And
what position you played?
I played center and I played tackle. And I punted the football.
Oh, really?
Yeah, did the same when I went to high school. But Carver I loved it at Carver. One of my, I just went to her 90-something birthday, Miss Hill. It's Miss Pitts now, but we'd be in there and we'd be walking down the hall, and we'd go all the way to the end of the hall. Like if you come in the front of the building, there was like 3 hallways that went across. It was made like in a square, but you had hallways. And when you got down there to the end, you'd take a right, go to music and something else. But you took a left and come down through there, and it was the English classes. Well, Miss Hill would be in the hall, and we'd be cutting up, jiving, doing whatever. Just when we made that left turn,
straighten up.
I mean, we was scared of her if she'd been an alligator or something. But, she was just, and in our life or in my life, the folks that's held me to account or accountable,
Right.
that's always been the ones that I ended up loving and respecting the most.
Right.
So, anyway, I had another lady that I taught science, Miss Binger. She was tough, and, my mama had to come see her a bunch of times. But she was our science teacher, and I learned a lot about insects and bugs and astronomy, the stars. And so all those teachers, I remember there's so many. C.P. Cochran was the principal over there. Always stood up straight, always dressed, to the nines. And one of my favorite that ended up being a lifelong mentor was Mr. Frank Butler. Mr. Frank taught a shop class there. They called it. I forgot what they called it.
I know you had wood.
Yeah, woodwork. That's what we done in there. And
then they had
it was just he was Frank. Mr. Butler had been at Tuskegee in school there when George Washington Carver was a professor there.
Down there.
I believe that's correct with what we talked about in some of our conversations. But he had this sign up, he had all these signs with these sayings. And one he said, a chunk of coal is a diamond that stuck to its job. And I never forgot that one sign, in my whole life, and kind of, it holds true with what we are. And
say that again.
A chunk of coal is a diamond that stuck to its job.
It stuck to its job.
You know what he borrowed? It ended up becoming a diamond over time, thousands and thousands of years. But Mr. Frank, sister-in-law, used to mark ties for us, Miss Maddie. I took George to Mr. Frank. He done passed away, but Miss Emma Butler's house. When he was in town, Miss Emma about whooped me because she didn't have nothing for us to eat, and she had a big old cake and some other stuff, but she got after me because I brought that man from Atlanta down there, and she didn't have nothing to feed him. So anyway, Mr. Frank told me one day back behind the police department, I was talking to him, and I said, Frank, time just goes by so fast now since I got in my late 40s and da-da-da. He said, nah, Chief, said, time remains the same. He said, when you're a little boy, 5 years old, and you're waiting on your birthday or Christmas, you wait 1/5 of your entire life for that one day. When you're 16 and you're waiting to get your license or some other thing, said you wait 1/16 of your entire life for that one day. And he went on up through it, and he says, what it is a year as you age just becomes a smaller part of your life, and therefore it seems shorter. Perfect.
He summed it up.
But growing up, played ball, at Carver, had a pretty good football team, pretty good baseball team. I think about
What was the name of the high school? Carver too?
No, it was Monroe Area High School. It's still Monroe Area. Now they don't have the Carver Junior High. Now it's Carver Middle School. But if you're familiar with Monroe, like if you're coming out of town going toward Good Hope or Madison, and they put in a real big, they about doubling the size of it this year. Right,
going east.
Yeah, going toward Madison out of town. Yeah, on Highway 83. I had some. I was a typical high school kid. I tried to stay out of trouble. I ain't getting too much, but
just typical teenage stuff.
Yeah. I was in my senior year. I only had like one class that I had to take, and that was an English class, Miss Willa. And I had been fishing at my future daddy-in-law out there at their place. I got a little pond, and caught some catfish. Anyway, we was in that first period class, and I'd been out there Sunday afternoon and forgot about it. And anyway, I was in there talking to one of my buddies, Scott Cameron, telling him about these fish I caught. And he said, well, what'd you do with them? Put them back? And I said, no, them fish out there in my car. So I had to go get them.
You forgot.
I had to go get them fish out. I went up and told I said, Miss Will, I'm sick. I got to go home. I need to go to the office. I got to go home. So anyway, got out and got in trouble. We had a boy that kept parking in the senior parking. Well, there was a group of us one day. We fixed his car up kind of like somebody does. Somebody getting married. We put stuff all over it. And we hadn't even got set down good in homeroom, and they rattled off all these names. Come to the office.
Somebody snitched. Somebody told.
Yeah. So we sitting in there. And,
it was key. He was there. He the main one.
Yeah. Well, Mitch,
we know he did it. Let's bring him on in there.
I was guilty. I mean, I went in there and, I guess there was four or five of us, and assistant principal said, he's talking about that. I said, Mr. Neal, I said, that was me. I said, these boys didn't have nothing to do with it. I done it. And them boys, they thought I was some kind of hero. After that, he let them go. And because
you took the blame.
I took the blame, took the paddling, and I had to go wash the boy's car and clean it up. And missed it. And I got 2 whoopings that day. I done had my whooping, done washed the car and come back. We had to go back in there and said, a lot of things bad could have happened. Said, Mr. So-and-so here, and I won't say that name. He said, we were friends after that, but he said, he was like a sophomore. He said, he could have got violent. And I said, Mr. Neal, that's been the worst thing he ever done. I got another paddling. But, that's just how you change and stuff. But life, high school was a great experience for me. And Kathy and I at that time, we'd been dating since we were.
How you met?
16.
You met her in high school? Well,
I met her really at church. We both went to Walker Baptist Church, and we done. The church had like a little flag football co-ed kind of thing, and that's where we I guess we started our seriousness. Yeah. And that's lasted, we got married May 29th, 1976. So I guess coming up on 49, 50 years. Mm-hmm. If my math don't hold me to the math. But,
so you met her in church, really?
Yeah.
That's good. That's
really?
Good. Yeah.
A lot of worse places I could have met her, but we...
y'all in the same age?
Same age. I was born.
So y'all seniors too.
I was born December the 7th. She was born December the 18th, same year.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah. We set up house in the house that I grew up in. Mom and Daddy had moved out of it, and so we set up house there. And I was still doing a lot of fishing. Had old fish, hydrosport bass boat.
So when you graduated, what you
Vietnam, the draft was over, but I had a buddy we go back to, Scott Cameron, and he's not here no more. He and I got into a lot of things and had a lot of good times together. But he and I were going to join the Guard and see how we liked it. And if we liked it, we were going to.
Right.
So I hadn't saw Scott in, a couple of weeks. So I went over to his house, knocked on the door, and I said, Mr. Cameron, I said, well, is Scott around? He said, Lord, Keith said, him and, God, I can't think of that boy's name. He'd moved to Monroe his junior year, but he said, they done joined the army. They gone. Said they went up there to the MEP Center. Said, I think they've been drinking. Said, but they went up to the MEP Center and said, they went right on in the service that day. I said, well, dang. Because he and I was supposed to go. I left.
Just test the waters out in the National Guard.
I left.
He wouldn't got out of town.
Yeah, he done gone. So I was going by myself. And so I had joined that local guard unit. And last day of July in 1975, I reported to Fort Jackson. Drill Sergeant Hayes and Drill Sergeant Kirby was our senior drill sergeant. And everybody then were Vietnam veterans. All of them was infantry. All of them had combat infantry badges.
All of them experienced men.
All of them tough. All of them been to the stuff. Yeah. I don't want to say bad words. Been to the stuff. Yeah. First time I met Hayes was in the reception station getting our clothes. He's a tall, slender, white guy. I had a duffel bag between my legs, and he walked up. You never forget this stuff. He says, "What's your name?" I stood up, went to parade dress, said, "Glass, Marvin K., drill sergeant." He said, "You're going to have to talk a lot faster than that to get out of here." And he just walked off, and I was like, what have I done? Why am I here? I sat back down.
Anyway, you got that southern drawl. You want to speed it up to New York style.
I got to talk faster. And he put us on that old cattle car, and you're just in there, like sardines in a can. And, we pulled up in the company, and you can hear them hollering. You can hear them drill sergeants hollering. And Hates, they open the door, and he just sticks his head in and says, "Fall out." Not hollering, not screaming, just fall out. So we get our stuff, and he marches us to the company street. He got on his khakis. He got his ribbons, and his CIB is covered up by the collar. I mean, you can he's loaded
all the way up to the shoulder,
up. Got all
the deltoid.
Got that infantry rope on. He gets up on that podium. He starts taking his shirt off. He folds it up and sets it down. He takes that campaign hat and sets it down. He said, "I know I got one beepity beep, 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 beep. I'm going to come down there and I'm going to beepity beep, 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 beep."
Oh, so
we're going to get this squared away day one. Yeah, because ain't nobody, and I'm looking like, wow, what you done, boy? What you done? So anyway, but then all these other drill sergeants hollering, raising, after he does that, puts his stuff back on, takes in, he does interviews with each one of them.
Did anybody challenge?
No, did nobody go up there, man. No, man.
Nobody gonna get embarrassed.
No, ain't gonna. Them cats, they special. It takes a special cat. But anyway, he goes in there. He does an interview with every one of us about just the same thing we're talking about. Who you are, where you come from, how you. He tells us all in the bottom. It's in 2-story World War II buildings at Fort Jackson. He tells us, he says, "Y'all need to try to get some rest." Said in the morning, said the biggest, the blackest, the baddest drill sergeant at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, gonna wake you up. How many of us you thought slept? We get all our stuff, and we hear it that morning. We was up on the second floor. The trash can get thrown down through there. He comes on up and he throws the trash can down through it, and he's a big man. For me to say he's a big man, he's a big man. I mean, he's a big man. He said, "I want all my men in the street now. You best be in a hurry." Because when you go out the door, there's somebody in your ear. I don't know where all them people come from. But anyway, long story short, later on, through Facebook, I got in touch with a drill sergeant that was in a different company, but he knew Kirby and Hayes
Right.
both, and he told me that Kirby had passed away, and that he didn't know about Hayes. Jesse Kirby, great human being.
That was a big sergeant.
Big man. He was big. It made that hat look little. I mean, he's a, you know, I say he's probably 6'4" and about probably 250 pounds. But he's a big man. He wasn't. But those two gentlemen had a major impact on me going from not really being grown up and thinking I was in pretty good shape and thinking I was
you was it
to figuring out that
right. So
you know I ain't a
you hadn't got married yet.
No. So that and then
so you was going training for how long?
Basic training. We were there about 12 weeks because the training at that time was like a 9-week cycle. But you had it wasn't 12 weeks, probably 10 weeks, 11 weeks, because you had a little time at the reception station.
Right. It was good training.
It was excellent.
Good discipline.
Went to Fort McCullough to the MP school and then got through that and then went back home, went to work. Kathy and I got married the 29th of May in 1976. And we had tried to have kids. We had like 2 or 3 miscarriages, and unless you've been a mama that's had a miscarriage, you know, I mean that's you lost your baby, and it's still it's not, you know, it's a tough thing to get over, and it affects daddy too, but not like mama. But we had went. I had worked in the mill, done work in the mill, and had worked at a plastic plant, and then went to work for a builder, and then started building on my own. This is over years.
Really?
Thought I was going to be a millionaire, and then we had some. Jimmy Carter was president, and it's during the oil and the inflation.
Went sky high.
Last construction loan I got was 18%. So yeah, it just
killed. It killed.
Come back and went from that. I done some went to work with an uncle who was doing what my granddaddy was doing. Uncle Jay, who is he's kind of been one of my lifelong heroes because during the time I was working at him, me and him sometimes didn't see eye to eye. You know, we get crossed up, but we had a lot of fun doing what we was doing. But I come back and I went back to work in the mill. Matter of fact, I went to the guy that was president of the company and said, you know, I need to sell you something. I need to sell you me. And I talked to him a little while, and Stephen Felker, he hired me, and I was fixing spinning frames like Mr. Jackson on the third shift. And I worked my way up, because we're married now, and I worked my way up shift supervisor, and I got promoted to shipping and receiving. I was working in the old mill, but the new mill had bought the old mill in this time frame. And I got promoted. They had a guy retired that run shipping and receiving, so I was a foreman over shipping and receiving, and I'm still pretty young, you know, and well, when I was supervising, I had 60 employees, and I'm in my late 20s. So, but mill people, salt earth folks, you know, that worked hard. Some of them lived hard, but just growing up again, back to growing up, the mill village was a great place to grow up. It's a great experience. But my uncle and I get to talking again, and he makes me an offer I kind of can't refuse. So I go to work with him, traveling. We set up machinery, and then I start selling stuff and doing things and with him. And then he and I part ways, and I do it on my own. And easy come, easy go. There was some times I made
Ton of
You know,
money.
you'd buy junk and sell merchandise. And then NAFTA and the things that happened with the textile industries, and I'd sold some part ownership in some stuff I'd bought to old boy and Gas Tony. And I'd hired the guy was the mayor of Gas Tony at the time. I had sold some stuff and it wasn't getting delivered like it'd been, so I rode up there, and the guy I needed to see wasn't there, but, you know, the other person was, and he said, well, you know, he done sold all that stuff. So anyway, I get the long story short, I'm riding from Gas Tony after I talked to the lawyer, and he said, well, he only has one piece of property on record. And because I knew where he lived, and it was a substantial house at that time. But anyway, long story short, he tells me I'll put a lien on this $6,000 piece of property if you want me to, or I won't. I said, don't worry about it. I said, how much I owe you? He said, you don't owe me anything. And I said, well, appreciate it. So I'm riding down the road, and ever since I'd been in high school, I thought about being the GBI. I thought about being and I'm between Spartanburg and Greenville. I say, I'm going to go home and go to policing somewhere. That's what I wanted to do when I was young.
It's popped up in your mind.
I'm 38. 38.
38 years old.
And I go home.
But you've been in the National Guard, too.
Oh, yeah.
You've been doing that.
Yeah. Weekend
Warriors ever so often, yeah.
Yeah, Weekend Warriors. And that career ended up being almost, anyway, that story rolls back into, I go and I apply in Monroe, where I grew up. And I get hired on the 8th of December, the day after my birthday. And I believe my starting pay was like $7.50 an hour, something like that. Come to work as City of Monroe Police. Now, you got a real good raise after you got through the academy.
You went to Gypstick?
Well, I went over there to Clayton. They called it Public Safety Training Institute at the time, over there in Clayton, Georgia.
Okay.
And they run that kind of like you met at the football stadium. They put you on buses and took you over to the school and done all that, you know. And
same thing.
Yeah, all that hollering and, you know, yeah. So, and that was a good experience. And really one of my friends that passed away just a few years back, Mike Matthews, he and I rode back and forth together. And Mike, he retired while I was working, and we thought we had his situation straightened out because he's had a lot of health problems. But anyway, Mike went through the academy with me there, and it was good to have somebody with you. And while I was self-employed, my oldest daughter, and you may remember, Mitch, it was in the news, baby Noel. She was left abandoned at a Jehovah's Witness church out in Walden County. Mm-hmm. That's my oldest daughter. We got her when she's about 2 days old.
Oh,
and
so,
yeah.
Well, you a police officer then?
No, I was buying and selling textile stuff.
So y'all decided to get that baby.
Yeah.
Give her some love.
Kathy she worked for the probate judge. She knew all the attorneys, knew the defects attorney, and Nancy Stone worked for juvenile, and that kind of thing was handled like through. Anyway, Nancy, some which way helped us, but we got it, and we've been able to. Her mama done this. I didn't think I could do it, but her mama went over everything with her from police records and you know. Mm-hmm. And because I told her, I said, you know, I'll do anything I can humanly do if you want to find your mama. Mm-hmm. And she, you know, so we didn't. But we got Kristen in December.
Around
February.
Close to y'all birthdays.
Yeah. Well, her birthday is
I know Kathy's 18th.
The 20th.
Yeah.
Hers is 20, 2 days different. Yeah.
Wow.
And February, we found out we were pregnant with triplets.
What?
Yeah, she had been going to a doctor.
After having a miscarriage, now she finna have 3 babies.
It was kind of our last, we've been married almost 10 years, or had been married 10 years. So it was kind of the last, and at that time I was doing well.
Good Lord, bless y'all.
Money.
3 at one time. After y'all adopted the baby.
Well, we were worried about how that would affect the adoption because we had her, you have to go through that. But anyway, all that worked out, and she had the babies at 25-week gestation.
So that's really, she got to deal with
Small,
4 kids, 4 babies.
Well, we lost one. Kimberly,
Okay.
she was going to be at, I think it called it East Side in Gwinnett County was where her doctors were. She stayed in the hospital 30 days because we were worried about losing the babies. Mm-hmm. So she was in the hospital like 30 days. Mm-hmm. And they kept it, and they had to transfer her to DeKalb General. Dr. Michael Armand was a neonatologist. Cool guy. He'd come to work on a Honda motorcycle and drink. You see him, he'd have a Snickers bar and a Diet Coke. Just a great guy. I mean, that was his thing. But so we had the babies, lost one. Kimberly lived 18 hours. And at that time, her hospital bill was over 20. I had some insurance, I was self-employed with John Alden. And I was working with my uncle at the time baby was born. I had the insurance with them. And they considered it an emergency pregnancy. Mm-hmm. They paid 100%.
Wow.
Ashley and Courtney were in the DeKalb General from June 25th till I think September 15th. Neonatal intensive care. We come home for about a week, and we're back in Athens because they were Courtney weighed pound 6 ounces. Ashley was like, that's man. Look, man. I always tell them, I say,
size your hand on.
I always tell them, I say, you look like little bitty old people. You look like. I used to tell Courtney, I said, you look like Papa Jim.
Yeah.
But just, what blessings. That was great on the insurance. We stay in Athens over there for about a week, and a representative from the insurance company comes and talking and said, what can we do to get the babies home? And the doctor said, well, I would let them go home if they had a neonatal nurse 24 hours a day.
That was cheaper than the hospital, too, though.
Yeah. Well, they done that. We had a nurse in our home for a year.
Whoa.
John Alden Insurance. So
that helped your
if
wife
you got
too.
John Alden, they look after you. But yeah, well, and
that was big help.
Oh yeah. Well, with Kristen, one thing I want to remember about her is that she's out in Colorado now. But the first night we had her, I just sat down and looked at her. So just watched her sleep. But then, you go from none to a herd.
Right.
So fortunately, things were where, even after I was on my own, until the time for them to start school,
right.
Mama was able to stay home.
Right.
And then that was back when I went to work at the PD, and he's talking about the insurance tickled me. I told you get a pay raise, and then the insurance go up amount of pay raise, and so you didn't get a pay raise.
You didn't get a raise.
That's just that, that's what it was.
City government.
Yeah. So
typical.
They were in there, them boys, they were complaining, man. They was talking about that. I said, y'all don't understand. I said, when I was self-employed back in the 80s, or, I went to work at PD December of 92, 93. I said, I was paying $600 a month for my health care insurance. And I said, y'all paying, $15 every 2 weeks. I said, you ain't touching what that insurance costs.
You were older, and you've been out there.
More mature, some of them.
Yeah, a little more mature than you. And plus, you've been in the private sector.
Yeah.
And you were able to let them know, man, hey, man, you had to hustle out there in that private sector.
The benefit package is better at when you're working for a municipality or something. And but I told him, I said, my last year American Express bill was $20,000 more than what I made the first year policing. People say, they talking about that. I said, now I went through a culture shock, a change of life.
Getting that city check.
But I had so many folks that was good to me and helped me. And I used to work part-time in a sporting goods store, Lee's Sporting Goods Store, Miss Janice Lee. And I didn't take pay. I just took, I kept my kids in Nike's
clothes,
working part-time, and then at that time I run a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I run a lot and done a lot of working out, but so it kept me in running shoes, and I liked that better than, it just worked out. But the kids, we were very fortunate with the girls. I mean, they've had very few, neonatologist comes in there and tells me, me and Kathy, he says, before they go in the liver, said, they're going to weigh less than a pound. He said, they're not going, so we're going to do a C-section, and no, we're going to do a regular birth through the birth canal because the rest of C-section in the size. And so had they done a C-section with all three left, that's a God thing. I can't question that.
Right,
I mean, I think we're blessed to have two. And but that was, what an experience that was. And, that's the line of Judah, like on your shirt, he takes you through stuff all the time. Sometimes we have to get a lot older to realize it. But you look back and you say, you don't do that by yourself.
That's
so,
right.
But, and I told the girls, because I was a chief while they were in high school, and that's probably not real fair, especially in a city of 12,000 or 10,000.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah, well,
and on them too.
On them more so than
who want to date the chief dog?
Yeah,
the police,
right.
Gun, and he lock you up. Write you a ticket, put the officers out on you. Yeah,
put the man on you.
That's tough.
So and it was, and I always told him, I said, later I told him, I said, that probably wasn't real fair to y'all to do that, but.
Who want to come to your house, pick up one of them girls, man?
Yeah.
Cheap police. Come on.
We had some times, there was some stuff, but the girls done pretty good, and they're doing good now. And what I told them, I've always stressed to them, do this, get this education, or do this. But the biggest thing I've stressed to them, I hope I have the way that I should have, is be happy.
Right.
It don't matter if you're happy.
Time here on earth.
If you're happy washing dishes at the restaurant, just be happy.
Well, how old were they when you got shipped out to Boston?
They were. That was in 2001. They graduated in 2005. So I guess they were freshmen in high school. Okay. And, of course, I went on active duty in December. We deployed actually in March.
Because they had that ethnic cleansing.
Yeah, it was a mess.
It was a mess.
We done our train up, done some stuff, mission rehearsal exercise and stuff at Fort Polk. Then we deployed out of Stewart. It's funny, we left Fort Stewart. It was like 28 degrees cold, and that's rare. We flew out of Wright Field.
It was cold over there, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. We had all our winter stuff on. We fly over and we finally get there, and we land over there. It's 8 o'clock in the morning, and we come off the back of the come off the aircraft. We go into, we come off the aircraft, and immediately you're like, oh, God, it's hot. Which is not what we were expecting. And when I say it's hot, it was in the 60s, and we got all this stuff on. So we go through the little process and get it. But 3 days later, snowing snowflakes, like I never saw great big snowflakes. But I never talk about Bosnia, and I don't tell this one particular tale. One night, my driver and I and an interpreter.
Because you command sergeant major now.
Right, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And we were out and we stopped at this, it'd be like a old-timey country store you'd see on a back road, or we had around Monroe. We were just having a conversation, and I got some coffee, and I'm drinking with these older Muslim men, and this coffee, I don't know what their coffee made out, but it's not like drinking some Maxwell House. I mean, it'll wire you up, and in the bottom of it, it's got that slush looking. But anyway, we're talking, and he talking about the atrocities. So, in my wisdom or my ignorance, I decided I'm gonna tell a American history story. So I talk about the pre-revolutionary, the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, all those issues, the unrest in the 60s and 70s with Vietnam and da-da-da-da-da. When I get through, my interpreter looks me in the eye and said, Sergeant Major, said, your country is just over 200 years old. Said, your army comes here. Said, you're all colors, you're all races, you're all religions. And said, you get along. Said, if I'm standing beside a Serb, you can't tell us apart unless you see how I spell my name or where I go worship. And we've been slaughtering one another for centuries. Profound. Yeah. It made me feel like, boy, you dumb. Boy, you dumb.
They've been killing for thousands of years.
Yeah, and I said, well, maybe your generation will be the one to change it. And he reached over, we wore an American flag on our right shoulder, and he reached over and touched it. He said, when this flag leaves, and he didn't say what I'm going to say, but he said, this stuff starts all over. And now I've hooked back up with him on Facebook, so I communicate with him. And they've had some issues in the last 5-6 years, but
nothing like they had back in the 100s.
No, nothing
years.
like that was, Srebrenica, where they slaughtered all those men and boys, and it's you see sites where there were mass graves, and you're talking about the military. I do think that it would benefit our nation if we had a program that was similar to what Israel does.
Yeah.
And
everybody got to go.
3 years for males, 2 for females, and they let them serve in other things other than just they ain't got to be in the Army, but in the police or because it's all nationalized and they're a lot smaller, so it makes a difference. But to truly appreciate what we have here in this country, you need to go somewhere else.
You need to go overseas.
You need to see what everybody else is dealt with and is dealing with.
Like you go to Rome or something, and that been centuries and centuries, and even when the Germans tried to capture the Colosseum,
I mean,
you just don't know. You think and
it's like in Israel and everything there. I mean, I got to go there with the Gilly program, and I don't care how you got here. If you become a citizen, whether you're born or you get here and you can stay here, you need to say thank you, Lord, every day.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you don't believe that's true, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
Go look. And then, you'll
that's
be,
true.
It's, Mitch, it's something else. But on 9/11, I had been an R&R in Budapest, if you can imagine Bubba in Budapest.
You got shipped over there?
Well, I got to go on R&R there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. R&R.
And I had a lieutenant and an interpreter that was with me the whole time I was there. The lieutenant told me I was the senior person on the trip. And I said, well, you got some field grade officers. He said, no, So we're gonna meet you in the lobby in the morning, whatever time you want to start, and we'll make sure you get to your room every night safe.
Budapest.
So I had a great time
in Budapest.
In Budapest, yeah. I mean, that's you taking a boy from Monroe, Georgia to Budapest. I mean, that's that's
eye opening.
Oh yeah, beautiful place. And with Budapest, you got to see Roman ruins. You could see the architecture from the communist days and the old architecture. St. Stephen's Cathedral, I think is one. It's the hands there in the cathedral that got lost during World War II, and a lieutenant colonel, I think, found it and returned it to the church. But I was coming back, and the first day, we were supposed to come back on a helicopter. The weather got weathered in. The next day, we were supposed to fly back to Tuzla, Bosnia, on C-130, but it broke. C-130s never break. I mean, they just, they had something they couldn't. So we walked back in the little flight center, and you got this CNN, all these big screen TVs were just coming out. And a little air guy said, Sergeant Major, there's a bad plane crash in New York. Because now we
Oh, okay.
We
so
6-7 hours different.
So, you over there. Yeah, I got you.
And so I walk over and watching it, and you've got the smoke coming out of the tower, and I'm just sitting there watching it. And the second plane flies in. I said, nah, I was thinking of Cessna or something. And now we got a problem. And so we had to spend another night there in Tazar, Hungary, and then come back on a small plane. And we worked with Russians over there. And one of the first people I saw when I got back on the ground, because I got through to Kathy from over there, I said, turn the TV off. All these experts that are on there talking about this, that, and the other, all they doing is scaring the hell out of everybody. Excuse my language, but I said, just don't, right. I'm safe. Just I'll let you know when I get back to Bosnia. So we fly back in, and this old Russian major that I'd met and we'd talk, and he was one of the first people I saw when I got back on Bosnia. Because when I got back over there, my main concern was getting out with my folks, my troops, and telling them everything's okay in America. If you hadn't contacted your family, contact your family, make sure everything's okay. And that old Russian, he looked at me, he said, Sergeant Major, Bin Laden, because they give us a briefing talking about Chechnya.
Mm-hmm.
I had this film, and it was, and he said, "I'll tell you, Bin Laden." So anyway, he was right, and so I get out.
So his intelligence, he had the true information already.
They briefed us on that stuff,
Yeah.
but Kristen started crying in class, and the teacher asked, "What's wrong?" And she said, "I don't know where my daddy's at." That's when it's happening here,
Right.
so she don't know what's going on, and of course our threat levels would change, but it went to way up here, threat con.
She thought it might have been some fighting going on.
She didn't know what was going on. But
So
anyway, so after that, we because it was coming up on the end of our rotation, we were leaving in October. And all the units we had to change. Well, I had to go back to the Sergeant Major's Academy. This is before 9/11, but we were coming back. And I have to tell this story. The incoming Chief of Staff of 3rd Infantry Division was at the airfield, Ryan, Maine. We walked in, if you were E9 above or 06 above, they had your little place you could go sit and watch TV and just chill out, wait on your flight. And people spoke in there, but there wasn't no conversations going on, wasn't nobody talking. And so we start to walk out to the aircraft. Colonel Torrance, Tom, he and I got to be friends, but we walking out to the airplane, and he says, "That unit you in?" I said, "It's in Winder." And I said, "Yes, sir." It's in Winder. I said, "You from Winder?" I said, "No, sir, I'm from Monroe." How small the world is.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's from Monroe. I said, "Sure enough?" He said, "Yeah."
Wow.
He told me her name, and I said, "Oh, I know her real good." And we got kind of cutting up with him. I said, "Not in a biblical way." I said, "She was a sophomore cheerleader when I was a senior on the football team." I said, good human being, good family, good girl.
Mm-hmm.
But me and the colonel got to be good friends, and we was talking on that flight. But as we start to approach, I always think about that news guy that claimed he was on that helicopter that crashed, but then he couldn't remember.
Total lie.
So So we starting to descend, and all of a sudden the pilot pulls straight up.
Whew. Oh man!
I said, "What in the world?" Starts doing all kind of stuff, and then we laying, we sideways, and you got them little port windows, and I start seeing flares.
So this is a smaller plane. It's not
It's
C-31.
It's C-130.
Oh, it
it's
is.
A big
Okay.
plane,
Okay.
I had to come back after 9/11 on a small craft.
Oh, okay.
I'm sitting by the colonel. I said, "That ain't good." He said, "No, that's not good." So they do all this. It seemed like forever, but it was probably less than a minute.
Right.
She's doing all this. So we land, and they tell us that, come to the back of the aircraft, got to be debriefed before. So we go back there and had a female major was pilot. Done a great job. She said, "I'm sorry for all that." Said, "Our systems showed that we were locked on by a surface-to-air missile, and we had to do these maneuvers." So I think you done good, ma'am. I appreciate you flying this thing like you did, because C-130 is kind of it's a real safe aircraft, but it ain't no, it's not no maneuver.
Yeah, right.
So, but anyway, that, and I always think about that guy saying he couldn't remember that. I won't never forget that airplane ride. But anyway, so we get through, and going forward, we started, when we were moving the units, we only give them 24-hour notice, because you would have units coming in that was replacing units, and you're getting a rotation set up. And Rhonda Carnum, who was a flight surgeon. She was a colonel. She run Med Eagle, and she was a tough lady. And I showed up down there and told her, I said, y'all got 24 hours, y'all leaving. That was part of I'd have to go tell them, and because I guess they'd rather me hear all of it than them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, Bobby, I said, you leaving, you're going to be on a bus, you're going to go to Croatia, get on an aircraft. Not going to fly out here no more. But that was because of the threat. And
right.
That plane ride I had was part of that. But she was tough. She got me one time, said, I was over, I would go to the hospital every 3 or 4 days just to see what we had over there sick or hurt or whatever. And she said, I got 3 soldiers in here with high blood pressure problems. I said, dang. Some of my old guard guys said, no, they're all active. They're all active guys, and they're 18, 19-year-old. I said, well, why their blood pressure high? They selling this creatine or something they were selling in the PX, some kind of muscle build. You know, going. I said, all right. I said, I went over and told him to get that stuff out there. I said, well, what did he tell you? He told me, I can't say it, but anyway, told me to get out of his PX. I said, well, what you want me to do? She said, I want you to get that stuff off shelf that it's hurting you, you know, he said. I said, are they doing it like it says, or they? She said, I don't care, I want it. I said, yes, ma'am. So I go marching to the PX and find Big Tony, big Italian guy. I mean, if you was looking for somebody to play a part in a mafia role, he would have been the perfect.
Tony.
Big Tony, yeah. Barsini was his last name, and he and I still in contact. But I go in there, I said, Colonel, see you about this supplement or whatever? I said, yeah. He told me what it told. I said, yeah, she told me that. She said, what? He said, what do you want? I said, well, I'd really like for you to take it off if you would. He looked at me and said, I'm going to do it. I said, but now, when y'all leave, I'm putting it back. I said, I don't care what you do when I'm gone. That's on you. He said, but I'll do it in one condition. I said, what's that? You go back down there and tell that to stay out of my PX. I said, okay. I said, let's go get that stuff. So we did. I went out there and I cleaned it all up. I went back down there and found her sergeant major. I said, where's the colonel? She said, I'll get her. And I come in, I reported and all that. She said, well? I said, well, it's off the shelf. She said, well.
You had to give her the bad news. You can't go back.
What'd you do? I said, I just asked him. I said, but there's a condition with it. She said, well, what's the condition? I said, well, I have to deliver you a message. I told her exactly what he said. I don't say that, but he said, you stay out the PX. She said, well, you go back down and tell him I won't be in his blah, 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 PX. I said, yes, ma'am, I'll do that right now. So, but they ended up, it all worked out.
Right.
But, it's sometimes you just need to ask folks. But that time period, I guess, was tough for the kids. And, I come back. I was a corporal at the PD, and I come back. They put me in the detectives investigating. And May of 2002, I got sworn in as the chief of police city of Monroe. So there, sophomore, junior, and senior year at high school, they had to deal with Daddy being the police chief, and but all that worked out.
But the good thing about it, you grew up in Monroe. You knew everybody. You knew everybody's mamas and daddies.
Yeah. Oh,
that
absolutely.
Was a big plus.
And it is a big
knowing
plus.
The whole community.
It is a big plus, and then sometimes it becomes a negative because you do know everybody.
Phone calls in the middle of the night.
Yeah, well, you do know everybody, and then, everybody wants to be special.
Yeah.
There's always somebody, even in the big cities, these folks want to be special, and but it benefited me.
But being a
having grown
sergeant,
up there.
being a sergeant major, command sergeant
yeah.
major, it
That
teaches
plays a
you
big
you
role.
can juggle a lot.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so that really made that job
Oh,
easy.
it prepared me.
Just like you're dealing
me.
with the colonel and dealing
Yeah.
with the creatine over there in
Oh,
his
that's
shop.
right. Yeah.
You're working the deals out.
Yeah.
That's all you're doing.
Well, that's what,
Yeah.
the role on that base camp, that's what I did. I just kept the base camp going and handled, one day Colonel Romine asked me, said, what all you do for me every day?
There ain't no training like military training.
Right. And I started telling him stuff. I said, I keep you from hearing about stuff you don't need to hear about. I handle business that can be handled without involving you, where you can do what you need
You're a
to
great
be
negotiator.
doing. That's right.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's the skills come from that, and from being in sales, and
That's
so
right.
it all that stuff
Made you who you were.
Working in the cotton mill to being a sergeant major,
You can talk the devil out of Georgia.
Try to. I'd rather talk him out than have run him out, But life, you go through so many things. I've been blessed. I got to be, I was the president of the Peace Officers Association. I was president of the Chiefs. I think first time I met you was in the Omni Hotel. You were with George, and we were talking about him running. To get on the board and end up being the president.
And George, I'm gonna introduce you to Keith Glad. He called that Hummer sheetrock mud.
Yeah,
I'm going there and get me some more of that sheetrock mud.
Yeah,
he loved to talk about that, man.
Yeah. I tell you what, he and I consider him a great friend, and when I was coming out. It was. I think it was a great thing for the organization. But when I rotated out and George was coming in, the night he was getting sworn in, we had two guest speakers. I had Colonel Mike Steele, who is, I consider, a warrior from Somalia. Afghanistan to Iraq. He'd been in a lot of stuff. He'd been in the Ranger.
Yeah, he's a leader. He's a real leader that can talk about leadership.
So we had the warrior, and Ambassador Young spoke on George. I mean, so I brought the warrior, and he brought the peacekeeper, and getting to meet Andrew Young, and I got to talk to him different other times, and you're talking about a wealth of knowledge. It's like I talk about Jack Lumpkin, who's at the cab now, but I meet a lot of smart people. He's just a wise.
Lumpkin from over Athens, Clark County.
Right.
I think my wife sent know about old Lumpkin. Well, I know Leroy Smith, a couple of her relatives, and Dewey Sheets, all of them from down there.
Well, there've been so many people. I always tried to build relationships, whether it was GBI, the FBI, whoever. We had a family that was in the narcotics business and crack cocaine business, and I'd worked that during my street time and knew them all. And the police car I had when I got back from Bosnia was a hand painted with a paintbrush, black Crown Victoria. We didn't have nothing. So that was my police ride, my detective ride. And I had talked to some people on the Mill Village, and they was telling me that there was a shot house, not a shot house, but a trap house down there.
Yeah, we call them crack houses, whatever. Yeah.
And so I got to watching it, and one day in the afternoon, I just ride up on it and go knock on the door. Well, I hear the back door close because the screen's hooked. I just keep knocking. Well, this is back before everybody had phones, and I called dispatch, and guy in town, Harry Arnold, owned the property. he come over there, Mr. Arnold come over there, and I said, I think the back door was unlocked. I said, I wasn't going to go in the property. If you here, I can go in with you. So we go on in, and they've got a little kitchen table, and there's like a half-eaten fish plate from somewhere, and a 22-ounce old English malt liquor. And walked through, has nothing else. There's a mattress in the bedroom, ain't nothing in the den. I said, I believe this is a dope house, Mr. Harry. He said, I'll start eviction tomorrow. So that's another blessing of the small town. Mm-hmm. We lock his place up, and I start to leave. There's a fellow down the street. He looks at me, and he grabs a bush and shakes it and points to the back of the house. So I walk back there, and there's a pack of box of Newport, the hard box, the little. So I pick it up and look, and it's full of crack rocks. Probably $2,000 worth of crack in there.
In the bushes.
Yeah, just laying up in that little cigarette pack box. So I take it with me. I just leave and come back about 6 that evening, and there's a car parked in front of it going up the street, and I come down the street. At that time, it went all the way, made a loop around 5th and 6th Street. Eric was driving, and there was a kid I say kid, he's probably 16, 17 that was riding, doing the signaling for him. If police come, he'd come riding up. And the guy's dead now, was in there with Eric. Can't think of his name right now, but anyway, I was talking, and because the guy on the bike's right here, so I'm holding a cigarette carton pack right here. I said, didn't y'all lose a pack of cigarettes? And Eric looked at me and said, Glass, you know what time it is? I said, yeah, I do, Eric. I said, Eric, I grew up right up top of the street up there. And I looked him straight in the eye like I am you now, and I said, Eric, I'll die and go to hell before this becomes Lacey Street. I said, you understand what I'm telling you? He said, won't be back. And it didn't. They never did set up another operation down there during that time.
Right.
So fast forward a few months, I'm the chief. And I'm riding around in a gold Impala, and some of the brothers have a house at the top of Turner Street and Marable. Well, I see this white guy over there, and he's looking at crack rocks, what he's doing, but he's doing it. So I just turn in, and he looks up, sees me, takes off running. Well, I just follow him around the house in the car. And Johnny Paul Blackwell's over there. He's laughing because I'm chasing this guy. And I run him across the street up in the woods, and I just back out and leave. It wasn't a little bit. I get a radio call. 301, can you? This subject wants 25 with you. Where you at? I said, okay. So I went over there, and here come Eric up on one of them. Is that high-powered Suzuki motorcycle some kind of fastest production? I mean, it's a...
Hayabusa.
Oh, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He come riding up, takes his helmet off, and he said, what going on, Glass? I said, I don't know. I saw this white guy over there by your air conditioning. I said, we've been getting a lot of coppers. So he said, Glass, you know what time it is? Again, I said, yeah, I do, Eric. He said, I left the mill village. I said, yeah, I really appreciate that. I mean, I did. I appreciate that. I said, but I was a detective then. I said, I'm a chief now. I said, you can't be nowhere in Monroe. And I said, Eric, if you do, you're going to federal prison. Ain't going to be no state thing. He said, that's how it is. I said, that's how it is. You need to move out of town. So anyway, we ended up doing a 10-month operation with DEA, and we had East Metro at that time that I had a guy working narcotics on it. And we sat on a pontoon boat on a farm in the middle of a lake. The DEA, Jake Jacobson, big tall guy. I don't know if you know him or not. Just great guy. Robbie Ballard, Keith Fitzgerald was the guy that was working for me at the time. And we was talking about it and the depth of it. And I said, well, look, 3 things got to happen. I said, 1, I want to run the operation until we have got everybody that's involved in it. And I said, I know that requires patience. I said, there ain't no deals. Ain't no deals. I said, right now, everybody we're dealing with, or everybody I think we're dealing with, know more about how the police work than some of the police. You know how that works.
Right.
And I said, it's got to be done in federal court. And
you gave him a warning.
Yeah, Jake Jacobson told me, he said, well, the federal court, that ain't no problem. The case will be made that way. And we got the money, And that's where we had a bad crack cocaine problem at that time. And so 10 months, when we get rolled up, it's everybody in the family except one brother. And the last deal we done, the mama actually done it. And I think a lot of and I hated that. But that's what happened because she didn't have to stay gone long. But, fast forward that, I have an aunt die. My uncle that I work with is here, and we leave in Longhorns, and there's a large group at a table, and I stop and talk to 2 people, and just conversation.
Right.
Good to see you, and take care of yourself. And my uncle said, you still know a lot of folks, don't you? I said, well, the 2 I was talking to, I sent to federal prison. He said, they'll still talk to you? I said, yeah. I said, I warned them. I told them what was going to happen.
You told them straight up.
And
he didn't leave town.
I've saw every one of them since then. And Eric's back in prison, I think, for something. Something happened with him. And Keith told me, he said, people asked us about you all the time. And said, the only thing I tell him is I ain't got nothing but respect for him. Said, he warned us, and he told us what he was going to do if we didn't quit. And he done exactly what he said he was going to do. So, and I don't, that's that thing where sometimes, we got to be mad at the crime, not the human,
Right.
And I think sometimes that's easy to lose in policing. You feel like you against everybody. But, so that.
Matter of fact, we was going to church, and I got pulled over. I think I was doing about 71. And I know I told my wife, I said, he's going to pull me over because I ain't getting respect to even bark down him sitting in the middle of the road coming down, what was that, 78.
Yeah.
So he pulled me over just past the, I forgot that little gas station. You can go to Walmart, trucks turn right.
Yeah.
And so when he pulled me over, I said, hey, man, retired Chief Flag. He said, yeah, how you knowing? So I told him,
Yeah.
And then I told him who I was. I retired. And he said, all right, go about your business, man. He said he had a brother. I forgot his name. He said he had a brother work at the airport.
Yeah.
Atlanta police. But everybody know you, even the young guys that you going on now.
Yeah.
But I know now, people don't know, I saw you got several appointments. Peace Officer Benevolent Fund, which my wife, she gets that check because I knew she would outlive me. So
good.
Put in for years. Well, he was on that council.
We sure can't. It was Peace Officer, Georgia Peace Officer Association, Chiefs Association, Post Council, and then deal. Some of them on the POAB asked me if I'd be in. I said, yeah, I'd like to do that because Post Council.
Yeah.
and bless them that do all that work. I was on probable cause, and
Mm-hmm.
man, they would bring us a book every quarter that would have 200 to 300 cases, officer misbehavior, and because you got everything, you got the prison system, you got anybody's a sworn officer. So moving over to peace officers was great. And the thing about are you in POAB?
Yeah,
You're great.
we had a gentleman from the beginning.
We had a gentleman that
as soon as I retired, 50 after 30 years, started coming in, and I signed her over. So she put up with me for 30 years being a police officer. I let her have it.
That's right. That's
she need more than that, though. She need about 5 more checks from me.
Well, that we working on some stuff now. Hopefully, we can do. We done the largest pay raise in the history of the thing since I've been chair, and Homer Bryson. Well, the whole board is we got a great board, and they do a great job, and Homer knows that gold dome and how to navigate the pitfalls of that place. That place can be tough.
Got to have some good lobbyists in there.
Right. But we had a gentleman from, and I can't remember, it was either Savannah or Chatham, but from down there. And he had joined that fund, and, he stayed to 30 years. And he passed away. He was like 92. He had paid in just a little less than $3,000. He'd drawn out over 300.
It's better than it's like a good mutual fund, man.
Yeah, it's about return on. We have high returns. I think the only people that meet us per what the officer puts in, and a lot of agencies now we do, and I know I talked to George about it at one time, doing it for Atlanta, but pay for the officers. So, but the only people I know that's giving a better return on a dollar would have to be Nancy Pelosi. She does a pretty good job with the stock market. But it's such a blessing. I mean, you think about you invested
probably less than 10%, and what you're gonna get out of it.
And you're not some of those returns.
It was $10 when I started.
Well, if you turn
$10 a month,
but at $10 when you started, that was a commitment. I mean, $10 policing was $10. I mean, I'm glad I done it. And then when I become chief, because Frank Thornton, the old sheriff, who is a legend across Georgia, he was paying for the deputies. So I got the council to do that. And the city administrator, old Julian Jackson, said, we're going to have to do that for fire too. I said, well, did the fire chief ask you? He said, no. I said, well, that's the right thing to do anyway. You ought to do it.
That's right.
So, and anyway, they got that for the fire and that. But you invest less than 3,000 and you reap 300 and
absolutely.
I think it's 306. I can't remember the numbers, but the POAB, and I just got reappointed to that for, I think it's 3 years.
That's great. That's great. Good to have a command sergeant major in there, looking out of things, negotiating. Yeah, absolutely.
It's just good.
It's going to be good for a lot of them young police coming up, and a lot of them don't have pensions. A lot of these agencies just 401k.
That thing was started in 1950. And at one time, the chair of it was also the governor of Georgia. So you think about when it started, and when we look back at some of the old stuff.
Who was that, Talmadge?
Talmadge. And then it changed. At one time, the POAG kind of got all that started. And then they created the POAB because it was state funds, and it had need to be attached to the state. So it's we just celebrated this year's our 75th anniversary. So, but when I think about life, I had the opportunity to play some college ball, but all I wanted to do was bass fish and get married and go on down the road. And But it ain't about mine, your plan.
It's God's
somebody else's plan. I mean, I'm here.
You here for His purpose.
I'm here for
Absolutely.
And I mean, I think about all the people I would have missed if I'd done a different direction.
You might not have that little baby left on that church.
Might not. Probably wouldn't.
Yeah.
So everything's.
The path is made. We don't know who we touched in life that God may use for a different realm. So the road that you travel, and a lot of folks don't know about the charities and Boys and Girls Club, domestic women and domestic violence. Yeah. Come on now, Keith. Yeah. You did a lot of stuff that supported those who are less fortunate.
Yeah, we got a lot. We started a little old thing, and I'm still proud of it. And the year I was chief, we picked out a couple of families, and we done Christmas. Old square-bodied Chevrolet, them old 88s, 1980 old square-bodies. I love them old cars. But we done Christmas for those two families, delivered it, and from that it grew to 10 families to 20. The year I retired, I think we done like 175. And at that time, I said, one, it's becoming an amount of money that y'all need to do some kind of board. It needs to continue, but it needs to be something other than just the police chief,
right.
and doing this stuff. So now it's Hometown Heroes, and the city of Monroe, the police department still does a little shop thing too.
Yeah. Cop and Santa.
It evolved from shop with a cop to shop with a hero, which when I got fire, involved fire, and I had the paramedics and even got some nurses and stuff.
Director of public safety, yeah.
So it evolved into what's now Hometown Heroes. And last year they done a little less than 500 kids. So. Of course, I retired in 2018, so it's grown that much. And the sad part is the need's grown that much.
Oh, absolutely.
But the good part is, it's grown that much too.
You did a couple of families to the hundreds.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's, I'm proud of that, and they still do a good job. And, your family puts up with so much, especially being a cop and then being in the guard and being gone and you can't, I always told folks, I said, there's a lot of times that I was somewhere when I should have been with my family.
And Kathy,
I said, that's right.
She took care of them girls, man.
Yeah, she raised
took care of the home. And
I remember when my mama was dying, I'd been by the hospital to see her, and I told her, I said, we were just talking. And she said, I know I'm dying. I said, well, you're not dying today. And there's nothing, I hadn't been told anything saying she had lung cancer. Of course, in that age group, a lot of folks smoke. Mm-hmm. She did. Mm-hmm. So where she had the cancer too, it wasn't really a whole lot they could do. But, she looked at me and she said, just promise me you're going to take care of them girls. My mama turned 50 in September and died in October. Young, real young woman. And I left the hospital that day and went home, and my phone was ringing again. This was back in days where the phone was in the house on the wall and not in your pocket. So I pick it up, and it's a nurse from out there said, if you want to see your mama, again, you better come on back. Well, by the time I got there, she was gone. And anyway, a couple of my aunts were there, and Betty and Ruth and my daddy's sisters. And
but she loved them girls, didn't she?
I was real strong.
Well, that's right, because you were the baby boy. You was the only,
only
and those were her
child.
only grandbaby.
Yeah.
So she would say, hey, take care of my grandgirl.
And that's just like in life. We don't have the wisdom, and we're not supposed to, and that's been something that's not haunting me, but, so many times I think, wow, what a time my mama would have with these girls, and what a time my girls, and that hurt me a long time, or something that would just,
Right.
but that's not. There was some reason, and but
But you got a good wife, man,
yeah,
Kathy.
yeah.
She did her part.
Oh yeah, she'd probably done more on her
Yeah.
part.
Oh yeah.
But
But you taking care of though.
oh
You
yeah,
done
well
good. You took
I
care of
done,
Kathy,
yeah, I
and
took,
she loved her big old hunk of cheap glass.
yeah.
Yeah, you done good.
Yeah, we've been fortunate. We've been
Yeah.
blessed, and it goes to you talking about being good to folks, and
Because I looked
I've
at
had the
her.
opportunity to be good to folks, and
Right,
that's
right.
and sometimes you don't get all the opportunities. And I think about.
But the scripture said, when you do good, it's almost like you do it in the
Never,
closet. The
never,
world don't need to know
never
what you're
tired of
doing.
doing good.
But you also, it's better to esteem others than yourself.
Right.
And so that's the reason I was interested in bringing you here on this show, because you don't brag on the good thing that you've done.
No.
And you always got to pull it out. And matter of fact, a lot of stuff I didn't know that I do know, you can put you in AI now, AI pull up everything on teeth glass and
There's probably some ugly stuff in there
no,
too.
but you know what? Now I ain't got no ugly stuff, but it cleared up some foolishness too. You can go in the weeds in that, because any good man, that's going to be, the devil going to attack him.
Oh yeah.
And he going to use people to come at you. So you good.
Yeah.
You good, Mr. Glass.
Well, I appreciate that. I think about folks being good, and
you good, Mr. Glass. Good man it's gonna float to the top.
When my daddy started having some Alzheimer's, and Dr. Howe, who has passed away now, great doctor, and I was talking to him one day, and he was saying, about Daddy and where we were and where it would go and where it would end up. And I said, well, I got a basement, and I said, it's got a bathroom, and I said, I can make him an efficiency down there. He said, Chief, that would probably work for a while. I said, is somebody at home all the time? I said, well, no, they're not. And he said, well, you probably need to look at something else. So he and I sat there and come up with this plan, because Daddy was having some coughing, and he said, I'm going to put him in the hospital about 3 days, and said, then we'll get him to rehab, and then you move him from rehab to assisted living.
Mm-hmm.
Great Oaks in Monroe. Great Oaks is
because you need 24 hour.
That
oversight.
Yeah, I had all that planned, and then of course I didn't have any kind of power of attorney, any kind of. So he got ready to go home. There wasn't nothing I could do but talk to him, and anyway, we went on, and he was at home, and I went out there to see him one day, and it was the next day after he'd been out the house, because I was going to send somebody, check on him. And his arm was, I said, what did you do? He said, well, there was some bubble gum or something. It was that tape where they'd had IV. And he done cut himself. So anyway, we went through all that stuff and told him one day, I said, look, tomorrow you and I are going to go have lunch with the prettiest woman in Walden County. And he said, okay. And that was Melinda Daly. She's the lady that owns and runs Great Oaks. I'd known the family if I ever went to school with her brother Ken. And so we go to Great Oaks and have lunch. And Daddy's, he's all excited. We even go pick his room out. And when I'm leaving there, I'm like, It's way too easy, this. So Kathy and the girls had cleaned up, just got his house in order and got everything.
Mm-hmm.
So he's back home and from the hospital, and I call him. I said, you up? He said, yeah. I said, you had breakfast? He said, no, I've been busy. I said, okay. I said, well, I'll come get you. We'll go get some breakfast. And he said, I want to go to my new house for breakfast, which was Great Oaks. I said, Daddy, it's about 9. They might not be serving, I go out there and I get there, and because he's got stuff just everywhere. And I said, what are you doing, Daddy? He said, well, I'm getting ready to move. I said, no, Daddy, you ain't got to do that. We'll take care of all that. And, I get him in the car, and he said, I want to go to the new house and a new home, I called Melinda, and she said, nah, we done quit, so we'll start serving lunch. I said, well, we'll do something else. And so I turn and I go the back way. I go to Winder, end up in Athens, because he's telling me he don't want to go nowhere except there. And I'm telling all this to tell another story, but we go eat, stop at the Waffle House and have breakfast, and I take him back home. I said, I'll be back to check on you after a while. And a little bit, phone rings. And it's Kathy, and she says, Betty and Maxine's out there. And said, your daddy's wild. I said, well, I've been with him all morning. I know he's wild. I said, I go back out there. So I go back out there and talk to him and talk to the doctor. But I called Melinda Daly, and I was telling her, I said, what? I said, I don't know how to, She says, you want me to come talk to him? Yeah. That's the thing where
So
when you're giving, you're always getting back.
Right. So she
left her office, come out there,
went straight down.
Talked to my daddy and got him calmed down, and told him it's going to be about this many days.
Right.
And her daddy.
She knew the job.
Right.
She was
her daddy, Ken Murray, mentored me in a lot of things. Some of it I didn't do exactly like I ought to, but Mr. Ken's, their family's been very helpful.
Right.
And I can go back and say, all these people have been, so helpful. The people that I work with, staff. I mean, I've had the RB Wattses, the Sam Treadwells, the Marsha Queens, the Gina Holbrookses, all these people. And all those officers that worked so hard those years, and the Matt McClungs, and I mean, I don't want to. I shouldn't even be naming names because I'll miss somebody, But
yeah.
And the fire guys, I learned a lot. We had while I had public safety, we had a fatality fire.
Right.
And we lost 3 people, and watching those guys do all they could do to try to save life was, I guess if you roll me up in a nutshell, never tire being good.
No, do so.
Doing good and doing good for others, and it always comes back to you. And
as we close it out, Keith, somebody's going to see this 50 years from now, maybe your great, and they're looking at this, and they say, you're your great granddaddy. What message, you can just sum it up in a quick minute that you want to lead to that young boy, that young girl that's looking back through history and looking at the famous command sergeant, public safety director, and
you're on a path. That path not necessarily yours. I think you can affect your path, but you're on a path that's set by something else. And it's set by the good Lord. trust in that and what's set out there, because his planning and his ability to plan for it seeds ours. And never tired doing good. Never tired doing good for others.
All right. Let's go get something to eat.
All right, Mitch. I wasn't supposed to get emotional.